Are we on? We're on, aren't we?
I think
Are
so.
we on? We're on,
mate.
Yeah, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to do something new where I am doing it. I'm streaming it to Facebook at the same time and sort of getting to grips with sort of streaming stuff out to a few different places live at once.
Yeah, how's it going?
Well, I don't know what I'm doing, Rich.
Well, that's all right then. We'll find out. Or either that, it's a private conversation between me and you, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is effectively, and that's what we were just saying. Like, so anybody jumping on now, we've got one viewer. It's Jade doing it live,
Right,
but
Jade.
it's really not about.
Hello, Jade. How you doing?
Hello, Jade. We'll see. Jade. Jade does the Newcastle United podcast that we put onto the channel as well because we're up in Newcastle and obviously football.
You're up our way, man, aren't you? Up north.
That's it. Yeah, I'm back now. I'm out, and that's it.
Have you got like bright sunshine like that? I mean, I've got to put up a screen to the sun shining through my bedroom window. It's just
not today. We haven't, but we have had. But today, no, it's been raining this morning, but it tends to clear up later. Yeah. Well, the West Country's always got sort of nice weather, isn't it? I love it down there. It rains a lot, but I love it down there.
But
anyway, right. So anyone that's tuning in, if you don't know about Rich, the Lost Soldier, we did when I first started doing these. I found you on TikTok, which I don't really bother with anymore. It's terrible.
It's nuts.
But
it's
crazy, isn't it? But that's where I found you, and at the time I just started cashing in on my background kind of thing because people had sort of caught wind of the story, if you like, that's a bit different. The fact that I was homeless and had all these silly convictions, etc., and then I'd end up in the forces. And then I found you, and we said it on the podcast that we did before that you were like, I was watching you and I was like, I'm like the wish.com version of this guy, because all of a sudden you popped up on TikTok and you were doing your thing, you were answering questions about prison and stuff. But like I said before, the thing that I noticed about you is that very normal guy. And then you were talking about your army career and very ex-Squaddie. Do you know what I mean? I can tell you've been in the military. And then as soon as we talk to each other, there's that sort of link. And then even when we did that podcast with Emily, my trans friend that I'd originally done a podcast with about trans, and then it just came about that Emily is also like a scientist pretty much. Do you know what I mean? So, but Emily, before Emily transitioned, she was in the army as a he kind of thing, but the three of us, it just all the conversation about all the other stuff disappears, and it just turns into three veterans talking about their time in the service and giving each other shit. Really, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, which is what it's all about, isn't it? Because you need to be able to take it to give it out, and it makes you you can manage anything, then, can't you?
But what I'd come across on the TikTok was your story, which is mental, way more mental, a bit different than mine, as in you left the forces and then got into trouble, whereas I was getting into trouble, and also the level of trouble that you was getting in compared to the level of trouble I was getting was a little bit different. Yeah, it was a little bit different.
You can't fit mine in your pocket.
You what? Sorry,
you can't fit mine in the pocket, can you?
No, yeah. Do you know what I mean? So like I've got a lot of convictions, but none of which are for anything serious. They're all very petty and quite embarrassing when I look back on them. Whereas yours was a real, sort of, I don't know if it's a descent or an ascend. Do you know what I mean?
It's both, isn't it? I think it's both, isn't it, Ricky?
Yeah, it's both. Yours was sort of, you left the forces and ended up, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Did you fall into drug dealing? So just anybody that's watching, the whole crack is that Rich came across on TikTok, and it turns out that Rich was in the army for 8 years, left the army, and sort of, I would say you fell into drug dealing, but then became, a very, very high level cocaine and ecstasy dealer in the Southwest. And when I say high level, I mean it's as high level as it gets, really. You ended up getting busted for 3 million pounds worth of cocaine, was it?
Yeah, I think they valued about 3 mil, but that was across 2 conspiracies. So the way that if it's a conspiracy charge, and I was charged twice, they will look at an overall pattern of movements across a period of time. So they've done a lot, say 6 months for an investigation, and they'll just go on a lot of assumptions. So with X amount of journeys here, X amount of journeys there, we will assume you've picked up drugs every time. So they convicted me on 22 kilos of cocaine. And that's what gave me 15 years. The value of the amount that was valued by the press was the amount of cocaine that was seized during various arrest processes. And I think across the two conspiracies, you had something in the region of preliminary arrest before the main busts, i.e. all the doors coming off, i.e. arrests that have been set up by the police to pick up people along the way for the initial investigation. There was something like 3 arrests from my lot. Amount-wise, very minimal, less than 2 kilos. Yeah, literally, it was less than 2 kilos. And then there were 3 arrests on the other conspiracy, which is Operation Berlin, and that was something in the region of about 7 kilos, thereabouts. So what they've done is they've extrapolated this amount. They've done purity checks, and what they've done is they decided that we were picking up XYZ from London, from Serbia, a Serbian network in London, which was at a certain purity. We were then, it was arriving in Cheltenham, so then going out to me. I was then knocking the hell out of it to expand it to fit the demand, because if there's never enough, and then they're looking at the purity levels, so it's filtering down through the southwest of England and into parts of South Wales. So
you said that before. You said that before, that there was just never enough.
No, and I think we said it on the podcast with Emily, didn't we?
With Mike.
That's it. And he confirmed that in the eye, without condoning it, in the ideal world, if you could get the materials in and not have to mess around with it and just bang it out as it was, it reduces your risks and hands-on so much. The costs would be more. So if I had let's say the demand through me each week, let's say for argument's sake was 5 kilos of cocaine, it may or may not have been around about that much. They needed 5 kilos to fit their customers and so on and so forth. If my supplier says, Rich, we've only got 2 for you, that's all we've got is 2. So, right, okay, what do? Do I let down potentially 3,000 people at the end of the line, or do I knock the hell out of it a little bit, expand those 2 into 5, drop the cost down, everyone gets a pub grub, they're happy. So you've got to make a business decision on how it's going to work. So purely demand. If they said I need 5k, so yeah, Rich, no problem, there's 5k, you owe us 250 grand, I'd bang them out. You would make slightly less profit, because when you mix it, you do increase your margins slightly, but you're increasing the risk of what you're doing. So it's a strategic plan, isn't it? But there was never enough. You could never have enough.
Yeah, we touched on that. If any, I'll plug my own podcast. Why not? But we've done. Yeah. We did a podcast with Mike Barton, who was the ex-chief of police of Durham, who's really interesting to listen to. I think that Mike, I don't trust the police. Do you know what I mean? I never will. Just and that's not. It's nothing personal. I mean, we'll get onto that. Your dad was a copper as well, wasn't he? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I don't trust the police. But I'm not one of these people that I hate the police. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand they've got a job to do. I wish there was more police like Mike, who is very, he's very much a copper. I spoke to him off air, and that he's very proud of his time in the police, and he lives by those police morals, which a lot of us don't. But actually, he's one of the few that really looked at things objectively and said, like, this war on drugs isn't working. And it was good that he came onto that podcast. And actually, I think he wanted to hear it from our point of view. Me, as somebody that used to use drugs, and you sort of explaining the business side of it, and actually that you're not a violent man. You didn't want to hurt anybody. I thought it was funny when we were talking about what do you cut it with, and you were like, why would I cut it with rat poison? Like, you don't want to hurt your customers. Which is that's one of them urban legends that goes around here. Like, they put rat poison, and then you think about it, and it's like, why would they cut their product with rat poison?
And you look at the cost. What is a kilo of rat poison compared to a kilo of creatine or something else? You think, why would I spend more money on rat poison and kill the people making me money? It's just ridiculous. Yes, I can understand some people at a lower end, when they're buying small amounts, i.e. an eighth or a quarter, they might think, well, what you find is, and this is something that does happen, is that if someone's at the lower end and they're buying an eighth, an emery as we used to call it, and they've got 3.5 grams, and they've been a little bit over ambitious on the bag, and they steamed into it, and they're taking it to a customer, there's like a middleman, they steam it, they've taken their 0.5 gram out, and they've got to replace that. Now, what they are inclined to do in sheer panic is run around the house finding something that's white, to replace that they've taken away. And that's when they say, well, let's crush up a paracetamol, let's crush up a fucking anything. That they will find something which will fit the bill to put in there. That's when it gets dangerous.
Well, yeah, and this is the other interesting thing, that having Emily on when we was getting all those graphs up and we were talking about the war on drugs and the dangers and that, like, and you know, this even came from Mike from the work that he was doing up in Durham in the nightclubs up there. Even he accepted that actually the dangers from drugs seem to be not the drugs itself, it's the fact that we're often not taking the drug that it's supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it's often what it's been cut with. You know, is it really ecstasy is meant to be MDMA? I dread to think of some of the stuff that I've taken over the years when I used to be an active drug user. Do you know what I mean? Especially with the E's, because I used to hammer pills when I was younger.
How many do you reckon you've taken in the past? If you could look at it and think, I wonder how many I've done. How many do you reckon you've?
It's scary because there was that point when we was talking, when you was explaining that the quality and everything dropped and that the price went down, and we don't really. But I was doing double figures sometimes on a night out. Do you know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? Like, we'd be going for like, we'd be going for 8 to 12 hours. Do you know what I mean? And just doing double figures eventually, and just only stopping because we were crashing and burning. But that's when they were like 50p a pill. And I don't know. Because when I first started doing pills, I was only about 17, so it was a while ago. But they were like £10 to £15 each, and one would, you'd be
one was enough.
One was enough. Do you know what I mean? And then just as the years went by, I think at the time I thought that my tolerance had gone up, but I don't think it had. I think it was just the quality and everything just came down. But again, like what was I taking? Because
you get used to the when you do the first one, it's mind blowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then I think you could take the same pill every Saturday, for argument's sake, and the effects you would build a tolerance to it, although it wouldn't be overwhelming. But you just sometimes get used to that. The euphoria. It's not as mind blowing as the first time round. It's still the same. It's just not as mind blowing. But yeah, I never got into double drop in. I never got into doing double figures. I think the most I've done on a night was maybe 3 in a rave. I was always selling. So
yeah, was you ever did you ever have a problem, as in an addiction to drugs?
No. I found it. I was addicted to the lifestyle.
Yeah,
and with that lifestyle came the drugs. So it's hard for me to go into a club, which was a dance club, and not want to do one. That's what I found quite hard, because for me it was like that pill is what glued it all together. Otherwise, none of it made sense. It didn't have the same meaning. So for me, that was like the bit that was necessary to make it all work. And I've been to clubs, and without being on anything, I thought, this is really boring. The music's great, but I'm just not feeling it the same way. So I think there is an addiction to that whole the lifestyle overall as a part of thing. But then again, it was.
I can't imagine a rave not. No, I can't imagine a rave without drugs. I will say this isn't anybody watching this back. We're not. Well, I'm not advocating drug use or anything. But like we did with that podcast with Mike and Emily. And this was at Mike's request as well. This is what he wants to hear as a copper. He just wants to hear people having grown-up conversations about drugs and drug use and drug culture, and stop pretending that it's not a massive part of UK culture, because it really is. And especially the rave scene. You go to a rave, if there's 1,000 people in that rave, to a man, pretty much everybody's using drugs. So I do think that it is important that we just sort of discuss it openly. But I couldn't imagine a rave without some form of they're not boozy affairs, are they? Otherwise everybody would be throwing up everywhere.
Well, I went to a party last year with my girlfriend, and I don't do drugs anymore. I was just and I don't really drink, and we went to this party, and it was a rave. It was like an old school reunion kind of thing. And I was having a couple of drinks, and I got there, and I wasn't feeling it the same way. I was literally just tapping my foot. I really couldn't get into it. So I was looking around. There's people completely off their tits, and I'm thinking they're having a great time, but they look such a mess. They just totally strung out. But they are having a much better time than I am.
You feel like you look like $1 million.
Yeah, but you don't. I remember there was a girl there.
I can imagine you look like that who's that raver? You know that clip that went round of matey? Do you know who I mean?
The one where he's going mad with the hands.
Yeah, where he's gurning and stuff. There's some bald guy and he's gurning. He's
oh, I know the one. Yeah, the one.
You know who I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly who you mean. The guy. Yeah, he does this like mad gurn thing, doesn't he? And
yeah, he's on TikTok now, mate. He does it on TikTok for likes. Do you know what I mean? He's not even off his head.
I think
anyway,
like...
back to it all, I suppose. Because we'll plug your book and everything while we're here. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, may as well.
Yeah. But you know, like I said, you and I sort of got on straight away because of the fact that you've done 8 years in the army. So yeah, it's a bit, you did it backwards. I sort of was living I say me and you have got nothing in common when it comes to the crime thing, but I was getting into all my trouble when I was younger, and then I joined the forces and that sorted me out. You did it sort of differently. You joined the forces and had a good career. You did 8 years, got promotion and all that. Enjoyed your time.
Yeah, I did, mate. But I was getting into trouble before I joined. I never got caught for anything, but I was becoming mischievous. I was certainly starting to break some smaller laws, and I was on the way to going down a dark path. But joining the forces just totally transformed my whole perception of life and everything. I loved it, mate. I loved it. It was difficult joining up in the 80s. It isn't very PC. And it's quite brutal when it comes to initiations and arriving at a unit and basic training, and everything was very, very difficult. But if you get through that hard phase, which is, say, your first year of training at your unit, once you get through that, it generally tapers off. And then you're just one of the boys. You don't get any grief. You don't get any crap. You're doing your job. You get promoted and you're just flying. You become really good at your position. You know your role. You know your role. And then you start expanding your career. I went into, I arrived as a gunner on Challenger 1 in 88. Within a year, you become a crewman. So you've got your phase 2 signals. You can learn to drive as well. So you can do any role on the tank. And I just got myself up to being squadron leader's gunner. And then I was transferred to reconnaissance, where I did 2 years of reconnaissance, which is on little baby tanks, doing sneaking around ahead of enemy lines, all that sort of stuff, which I really enjoyed it. And I think I was just at the point where some of my colleagues in the tanks would probably deny this, but I always thought I was a really good tank soldier. But I was known as the crap corporal because I just didn't care. I did my job. I was good at my job, but at the same time, I also loved going on leave. And that was always my Achilles heel was going on leave. And I loved partying. Germany didn't offer that. It didn't have that same atmosphere, because anyone that's watching this who lives in a garrison area, especially in Germany, I'm not saying in Germany now, but it's pandemonium. There's no calm, and it's not a calm place. It's not a decent environment. It's absolutely nuts over there. And I just like going out clubbing and partying, and Germany didn't offer that. So I used to go on leave a lot, used to use up my full allocation of leave, long weekends, and I just focused on, so I've like two different parts of me: the military side, which is one, and the bit where I was at home, which is another one. I was never seen as a squaddie on leave. Didn't look or dress like a squaddie.
Right. It's a very easy life, though, isn't it? Forces.
It is, but you don't realise at the time, do you? Everything's done for it. You think that you've got it hard. You think you're the dog's nuts, don't you? When you're in there serving, and you come out on leave, and you think you're better than everyone else, and it's like, it is arrogant, but it's not. It isn't our. We got to take ownership of that, but it's not our fault, because we're taught to be that way, to be able to commit, haven't we?
I think things were always a bit different for me, because I joined so late. I joined at 32, so do you know what I mean? I joined. Yeah. I lived a life already, albeit a shit one. But I went in sort of fully formed, if you like. Do you know what I mean? So, but I sort of struggled with that in places. But I'm only mentioning it because I've just left now, and I'm sort of in the process of transitioning into a civvy. And I don't miss being in the Navy, but I miss not being a civvy, because it does sort of take you away from everything. Do you know what I mean? And if you're like me, I don't know. With you, I know that you started getting into all your sort of trouble, your mischievousness, before you joined the army, after your parents split, kind of thing. So you've got those issues. And with me, I had a lot of issues. And what the forces did was just take me away from everything. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's right. Yeah, I think it just takes you away from it. The problems still exist. The problems are still within you as well. They're not gone. They're just suppressed, because you've got other stuff to get on with, and you've got such a strong support network in the forces that, you generally speaking, you don't the chinks in your armor don't really appear because they don't need to. You've got other stuff going on, and when you get out, that's when the chinks in the armor start to appear. That's when the problems start to manifest.
I'm glad, because I'm just thinking about because we spoke about this before, when you left, it was done a bit sort of the way that it used to be done, is that 1 minute you were in and the next minute you were out, and it's not been sort of like that. My plans have changed basically, and I've left the forces. April the 3rd was my last day, and I'm still not drawing a wage because I'm waiting for these 2 things to come off the sort of 2 jobs that I've got lined up. But I just think to myself, if I was younger and I didn't have the life experience I picked up before I joined late, I can see by now would be a really, really iffy time for me to go off the rails. Do you know what I mean? Because if I was a single young man now, having come out the Navy, and I sort of found myself where things don't get done for you, do you know what I mean? There is no, there's no real. The only structure in my life at the moment is the structure that I sort of put on myself. Other than that, I could go out and do what I wanted willy nilly. And also, because I've done all my partying when I was younger, I can imagine that a lot of lads would leave the army sort of like what you did, and suddenly you're very free and you can party as much as you want, and you do party as much as you want.
It is, and when they take those rules away, because the amount of, and people don't realize the amount of rules and restrictions you get used to living under in the forces. Simple things like in the army, you have to shave every day. You have to have a certain hairstyle. You have to be able to dress and press and iron your kit, polish your boots. All these things you do every single day for 7-8 years. All of a sudden, you don't have to do it anymore. It's like, and then you don't just let go of those bits. You let go of everything, the discipline, the saluting people, the saying sir, all that goes, and you think, thank God for that. I could just do what I like now. But you can't. But your mentality makes you think that you can, because you've spent all this time under so many restrictions. Simple things like when you go out, you've got to sign out of camp, sign back in the camp, show your ID, make sure you carry that, make sure you got your MOD 90 on it. All these things that you get used to doing from a young age of basic training all the way through to your mid-20s or whenever you leave becomes part of you. And then when that's completely gone, all of a sudden you think, well, I've got no rules. I'll do whatever I like. And you just get that thing in your head. And you add that to the confidence that the army give you to do your job. That's a lethal combination of making someone go completely wrong as a civilian. Lethal.
So what happened? When had you done a pill before you left the army?
Kind of. What I did, we were on exercise, and I was already getting out. I already signed off for me last year. I was like winding down. And we were somewhere in Germany. I can't remember exactly where it was, but we'd finished the 2 weeks out on the exercise. We put all the wagons together, and we was having a smoker, which is basically a piss up. So we had a chance to go back to the barracks and have a quick shower. And you don't get it often, but you jump. I think ours was on. We were jumping back in the Land Rover to go back to camp to get all the beers. So we said we got half hour. Let's get in the barracks and just have a quick scrub. I mean, mate from Scotland, I won't give anything else away. If he sees this, you know who you are, mate. Thanks very much. You introduced me to that world almost. He said, "Oh, I've got a pill here. Should we have it?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" I just said, "Let's have half each." It was a Dove. And I had this half a pill. But being on an exercise in the army was a completely wrong environment for having a pill, because I didn't really feel anything. I think something was happening. All I remember was being out back in the woods with the lads. There was no music. There was nothing. There was just a load of squatters stood there in the pitch black drinking beer. And I thought, this doesn't, I'm not getting it. Maybe the pill was a dud. Maybe it was totally wrong environment. Maybe I wasn't ready for it. Maybe I don't know. But I had done half a pill and I didn't get nothing off it. And then I just thought, clearly they're not as good as everyone's saying they are. And that was that would have been early 95 or possibly late 94. But no, other than that, I was dabbling on a bit of amphetamine on leave with my friends when I come back from Cyprus mid-94, as I'd signed out. I'd go on leave. Every time I went on leave during that time, I was probably messing with a bit of amphetamine to speed. It was cut down, but still drugs still get you in trouble. Wouldn't it? If you get picked up by it, you're done.
Well, listen, I've got personal friends that are addicted to amphetamine, and I used to take a lot of drugs, and out of all the drugs out there, that's one of the worst. The addiction, when people get addicted to speed, that does terrible damage to someone's mental health. Out of all of the things out there, speed really does affect people's mental health, and it's so cheap.
Yeah,
it's minging.
Oh, it's disgusting. I used to
stuff. Yeah,
it's before I started before I got involved in taking ecstasy. When I was doing door work, and this was literally within the first 3 months of me being out. So I got out round about beginning of June '95. I was doing door work within about a week or so. So every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was on the door, and I was my drug of choice then was amphetamine, but it was base. It was like the paste. So I was like, it was just disgusting. But with that comes paranoia. Now, I'd never been used to paranoia before. I'd never experienced it. But being on the door and feeling paranoid, seeing a group of lads turning up is not a good combination, because you think, shit, this is going to go off now. It's going to go off. It isn't. You just think it is. And I realised then that it was the drugs that were doing it. I'm quite glad I got away from that and, ended up involved in ecstasy some 3-4 months later. And but the amphetamine was horrible. Just not very. The only good thing was the initial, like, the euphoria that you get. You talk like mad, don't you? But once that wears off, it's
you
just
talk,
nasty.
and it helps you carry on drinking. To be honest, that's what people used to use on the booze. Do you know what I mean? But that's been replaced by cocaine. It's your fault, that, Rich.
Sorry, mate.
But yeah, right. So we sort of go down. So you left the army. You done 8 years. You just had enough, because that's why I left. I just had enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, three things, mate. 3 things which made me leave. The first one was when the Berlin Wall came down in '89. All the forces in Germany just shrunk, amalgamated to different regiments. So this consequently meant that all promotion had really kind of plateaued. There was nothing happening. It was slow. I got my first stripe, was due my second. So I thought, not going to get another stripe for a while. So I'm going to be behind. All right, I'll live with it. I was starting to mess with drugs as I was going to leave. So that was a bit lethal. They just bringing in CDT at the same time. So compulsory drug testing was being introduced around about 93, 94, I think. So that was becoming a problem. And then the thing that killed it was I was on leave I came back from the UN tour to Cyprus. Got home, met someone. I've met various girlfriends over my career, but and it just didn't work living in Germany. Met this girl and I thought, I like this one. I really like this one. And I was just totally, I don't know, it was lust or love, but it may have been a bit of both. But when I got back to Germany, I was just pining for it. I thought, I can't do this. This is doing my head. So I'm messing with drugs. I'm not getting promoted. I've had a lovely time in Cyprus in the sun. German is shit. And I met this girl now. I thought, I'm going to get out. Sod it. I'm getting out. I made a conscious decision. I thought, that's it. So I literally took this off from the tank park, probably working up to RHQ, signed off. That's it. I'm done. Getting out. It wasn't just me. There's loads of us getting out at the same time. We'd all had enough at that stage. But a generation of us that had joined in the late 80s joined up a certain army with certain people with a certain job role. And I think that job role had evolved. The job role itself was good, but the army we were in was just so different. It wasn't what we joined. And that's common. It's still the same now. It evolves over time.
I was just about to say that's exactly the same now, because it was the same thing. My generation, as you talk about generations, I joined up, and there was a bonus scheme with me, which they've changed now, so that might sort of help or hinder it. But with me, once we'd done 11 years in a day, that meant that as long as we did 12 years and we saw out our full year's notice, we got a payout. But after that payout, that was it. There was no more bonuses. There was no real reason to stay unless you were a lifer. So it was kind of after 12 years for my generation, if you stayed in, you were staying in forever. Do you know what I mean? You were doing your full time, or you were leaving. And I was like, I'd really had enough. I'd struggled for the last few years, to be honest. Which again is why... it's why I'm really glad, kind of thing, that I came out as a 44-year-old, rather than...
You look so young, Ricky. You look so young.
I don't feel it. I don't feel it. No, do you know what I mean? But I came out luckily old enough to because I think if I'd come out younger on the back of a good 4 years where I wasn't happy, plus a lack of all the rules that I've had to follow, I think I would have gone a bit mad with the drugs and stuff. But anyway, getting onto that, because that's where we're heading. So you sort of start taking pills, and again, this was an interesting thing that I think Mike was listening into. Your sort of the beginnings of your drug dealing career, right? Started like many people do, sorting pills out for your mates, which actually amongst friends, again, if we're just going to be really honest and have a proper grown-up conversation about it, right, amongst friends, that isn't classed as being a drug dealer, is it? That is somebody has to sort out the pills. And it's usually just the person that knows someone. It's, you know, there's no, you know, there's no like, I want to be the one to sort out the pills. I'm going to be the drug dealer, or like I want to start off drug dealing. This is my, this is how you start. It's just a case of who's sorting the pills out, and somebody will be like, oh, I can sort them out. And you get a free pill out of it yourself. Do you know what I mean? And that's literally how you started. Is that right?
Yeah, and you look at that on that same logic. If you're in a club and you've got a group of 4 friends, and you do all 4 of you go to that one person, or does one of you go there with your money? Does that make you the middleman? Does that make you the drug dealer? I've just gone and bought 4 pills and I'm now giving to my mates. Does that make you a drug dealer or a drug user?
Well, and also the dealer himself, the actual dealer, he's not going to want 8 people one at a time coming to him. He's going to say, one of you come and see me and get everybody's at once. Do you know what I mean? And that's sort of, it's such a simple thing, but that is how, even though it's weird because we're saying that's not a dealer in our mind, but that is actually how you started, your ascent, descent, whichever way you want to look at it, into sort of, top level drug dealing.
It's kind of like, how can I put it? From a business strategy, if you're that man in the club and you've got, let's say you got 100 pills on you, and you don't want, this is how you create dealers for you, isn't it? You say, right, mate, here comes, you got any pills? Yeah. Right, okay. How many do you want? Well, I want one. We make one. So look, fuck off over there, see all your mates, get an order together, and then come back and see me when you're ready. Now, give me an idea and we'll sort it out. So you are creating a dealer out of that. From my perspective, when I was selling the clubs, I'm making that, I'm not intentionally, but you're making that person a dealer on your behalf. What I'd say to, look, if you're coming to me and you want 10 pills, I'll chuck you one for free, mate.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they're doing your hard work and they're getting a drink out of it at the same time. So in essence, you are making them a dealer with them not realizing they're becoming a dealer, because they're just sorting their mates out, as you said. And there's no difference in the principle of coming out, and that just progresses. So yeah, for me, it was literally, there were 5 of us used to go out, and the guy that was getting them, he just didn't want to do it anymore. So I don't want to do it. My ass is going. So that's fine. I'll do it. I ain't got a problem. So I went and saw the guy and grabbed me 5 pills. We were paying 8s for them at the time, but charging 10s in the club. So I give him the 40 quid, and that was it. I got 5. We got one free. That was mine. I thought, well, that was handy. Sorted the boys out. And it was only like that for a couple of weeks, and it just progressed. People see that you're having a good time. They approach you, they ask, and they say no, but okay. And then the following week, I brought down a few more spares, and it just built. It kind of built slowly.
Did you know?
It was a good few months.
Did you, when you say it built, were you building it? Did you?
Yeah, I think it subconsciously. It was weird because it wasn't the building it because I wanted to be a drug dealer. I was building it because I wanted to be a part of something, because the army, where you're like engaged in this community, aren't you?
You wanted to sort of be Billy Big Balls of the club, if you like. Do you know what I mean?
I think
I don't mean it as in like, because you get some people that want to be a gangster. They want people to think they're a gangster. But is it just a case of you just wanted to be the man? Do you know what I mean? That everybody.
I think that came in time, and it was nice to have that. I'll go into part of that in a sec. But for me, it was just about just forming this new lifestyle around me, which I was lacking from the army. I didn't realize how much I'd left behind in the army, all the boys, all the lads, the job, everything else. There was a huge void in my life. And when I came out, I think I was just filling the void by doing this, and by introducing people into my life on my terms. All of a sudden, I was building this network of people around me. So I felt like I belonged to something. I felt like I was part of something. Yeah. And that was the bit of my life that was missing from the forces. And in time, what happened is it's a very false reality, because people come up to you and say, oh, Rich, you got any pills? Yeah, no worries. You do your thing, you sort them out, you shake hands, they come back and see you half hour later on off their tits to give you a hug. Oh, mate, it's amazing. Yeah, thank you. Don't worry about it. And you get this environment around you. You create an atmosphere which is really positive. And then that Billy Big Bollock sort of came into it. You walk into the club on the night thinking, yeah, I fucking got this nailed. This is after a period of about a year. I was then doing, me and I had a friend who came out of the army about 7 months after me, and we were living in these flats for ex-forces, and he was living next door to me. And we teamed up. I said, look, I've been doing this thing for a little while, so come on board with me, because we're both out of military training. I said, look, we'll do this as a partnership. And we ran a successful partnership for about 18 months to 2 years, but it became difficult. How can I put it? He likes spending money. Right. He painted a picture to a girl that he was seeing, that we were earning a certain amount. We weren't earning much money at all. We were literally living hand by mouth. It was because our whole existence focused on those 3 days of the week: Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's all that mattered to us. The rest didn't matter. The weekdays didn't matter. We just cared for those weekends, and we're just living literally through the week. We're just surviving. So we weren't making loads of money. We weren't making any money. He told his missus we were earning like something daft, like 500 quid a week off of it, which back then was decent. So he had to show an expenditure. So if she wanted something to eat or a meal or clothes, yes, you spend some money. I was, Dom, where's the money? It's not in. Where is it? Oh, I just said his name then. Shit. Yeah, sorry, Dom.
There's a million dollars, mate. There's $1 million.
Yeah, there are. So where's the money, mate? And he's just like, he's gone off, and he's just spending it. And I couldn't control the expenditure. And what happened in the end was, it was getting us in trouble with people. We're getting in big trouble, and we're getting debt collectors coming on our case. And it was getting to the point where I said, I can't keep doing this. This is going to get us dead. So we went our separate ways. Around about 1998, we sort of went our separate ways. And then at that time, I met my wife, or my then wife, and I've moved out from the flat that I was in and just relocated. And we didn't really have any contact after that. But it was for at least 2.5 years, we were just living this life which was just totally unhinged. Parties in the flats all the time, clubbing all the time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was just like barely existing, collecting up the money in the right state. It was just, looking back now, it was certainly had its highs and its lows, but a lot of it was quite stressful. The stress that was building up in the background, I didn't notice, but it was building up. It was certainly beginning to manifest itself.
Were you working? Because I know you did the close protection stuff when you left the forces.
So when I came out, I did door work, surveillance, and CP work, and that was all well and good. The door work I binned after about 2 months. It was taking me away from the club, so I binned that after a couple of months. It wasn't for me. Yeah. Surveillance doing about 18 months, and it was a good job. I was enjoying it, but the trouble is, the work for surveillance was, you won't necessarily get a full week out of it. Might get 3 or 4 days if you're lucky, maybe 5 days if you're really lucky. And if I was getting 5 days, it'd be fine. I could manage it. What I found, though, because I was going out clubbing on a Thursday night, me doing surveillance on a Friday morning was somewhat difficult. So I was becoming quite unreliable. Put it that way. Yeah. Plotted up in a car, just like, oh God, the van man's watching the house, and I went to get a follow to get right, stand by. Oh God, I got to wake up now, and I got to try and do this job. Same as on a Monday, really hard. So I was becoming less reliable in that one. And in the end, the chap said, we got no more work. And he let me go because I wasn't effective anymore, which is fair enough. So I was trying to take on jobs with other surveillance companies, which unfortunately, the one I was with was really good. They paid really, really well. The other companies didn't. It was a case of, you do a 10-hour surveillance or something, and they just don't pay you. You're chasing it up, chasing the money, and you're not getting the money. So in the end, I had to sort of resort to selling the drugs, which was paying the money. And that was that kind of weird transition where I was trying to make this money doing the security side of things. But because of my drug taking, I became unreliable. So I had to work with unreliable companies who weren't paying. So they could take further down the drug dealing. That's that ascent and descent further into the drug dealing road to make sure I was getting paid. But then working with my business partner, he was spunking the money up the wall. So that was making it harder. So it was a really turbulent 3 years. But it was 3 years. I don't remember all the bad time. I remember all the just this weird
good times. And
weird.
Like we said, look, we have to have a grown-up conversation about whatever we're talking about, and let's not pretend that taking pills and going out all the time and partying is a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? Or that it makes you feel bad? Because I certainly wouldn't change a lot of my nights out. I'm a junglist. I'm a drum and bass head. So I used to go to drum and bass raves like you, I went to one because I'm sober now, as in I'm booze free. Just leave that there.
Yeah.
So I'm booze free now, but I went to a rave in Bristol actually, Ronnie Size. And I was sober. I was on a straight head. All I did was drink water and that, and it was the same. I appreciated the music, but I thought I won't be doing this again. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, the times that I went out before, I took ecstasy and I had a really good time. So, you know, there's no point. There's no point in pretending that people take drugs.
I'm going to a rave next week, mate. I've been invited. My girlfriend's sister's boyfriend, who I know really well. He's a DJ.
Where you going?
He's very good. It's in London.
Oh, right.
He's a really good drum and bass DJ, and he's just releasing his first album. So we've been invited to the rave. So I'm going.
You'll have to send me some links afterwards. I won't be coming to the rave, but I still listen to drum and bass. But yeah, what's also mental when you really think about it, and this is what we were talking about with Mike when Emily really helped us, because we had that chart. And ecstasy, the dangers of taking pure MDMA, right, on a list of drugs. I think it's third bottom. You know,
it was right down the bottom, wasn't it? And alcohol's right at the top, wasn't it?
Yeah, alcohol is the number one, right? It's the worst drug. And that chart, it's by Professor David Nutt, and it's a chart that looks at the social damage and the personal damage that
which was good.
Does. You know, so it's not just, you know, and I thought about it afterwards. We line our streets up on a Friday and Saturday night with police and ambulances ready for the carnage that's about to happen through alcohol.
Because of the drink.
Through alcohol. And ecstasy, actually, there's very little drama at a rave. Very little. And the dangers only come about when people are taking things that don't turn out to be ecstasy. Actually, MDMA as a drug itself is pretty safe. Very, you know, as opposed to the other drugs, like we said, it's the third safest on that list.
I reckon I must have. I can't say how many totally, but when I was banging out about, say, 10,000 pills a week, I did have the regular customers all the time. They were taking 1,000 or 2,000 each, and they'd all go out, and you would know if something went wrong because it would filter back up through very quickly if something's gone tits up. And not once did it ever have anyone say, "Oh, someone's just fucking croaked because of this," or "Someone's just had a problem because of that."
And the reason I bring that up is because it's a Class A drug, and the amount that you were moving, you know, you're risking just a huge amount of prison time for not very much profit.
Oh, it's terrible. There's like nothing in it, like pence. You think, why am I risking 10 years inside to make 400 quid? It doesn't make sense. It's just a bad idea.
That sort of leads us into, because I know that you became, you know, you were selling a lot of ecstasy pills, but, you know, like what we were just saying there, you weren't actually making a lot of money off of it. It's just to fund the lifestyle, if anything. But then you move into cocaine, which obviously is very lucrative. It's just everywhere now. But back then it wasn't everywhere. Or was it? I don't know. Or was it just that I didn't use it, so I didn't know?
I think that the way that it evolved, and I think I came into the world of ecstasy and that at the time to see the evolution of the decline of pills through the back end of the millennium, and as a cocaine was being introduced, and it seemed to be a natural evolution where cutting agents became much more readily available. And I don't mean just rubbish stuff. I mean stuff that would enable you to cut the cocaine to a point where it was still on the face of it very good. And it seemed to me that everyone I knew that used to be involved in ecstasy was moving into selling the cocaine, because that's where the market was going. So all the ravers, let's say your generation of people. Now, most people that sell drugs, a lot of them are quite moral in the sense they won't want to sell to kids. So you move with your generation. Yeah. So if I went at a certain time, you've got a group of people, and your customer base is let's say in their early to late 20s, could be older, not usually much younger, and they evolve through the clubbing days. And they get a bit tired of the club, and they think, well, we'll start going to bars and pubs now. Yeah. So with that comes a different kind of atmosphere and a different kind of substance, if they're inclined to do that. And most of these people would have been going home on a night after a weekend of taking pills, and they're going to get a bag out and go for it. So they're not against the idea of doing it, but their whole way they're living and doing things would have evolved to do something different. So with that, you move with your customer base.
Yeah.
You don't sit there trying to find new customers. As someone, as you move, you look at what your customers are doing. They go into clubs. They're starting to stop buying these pills. What they're doing, they're looking for coke. Well, I may as well produce it myself. That's why I moved into it, because all my customers who were doing pills were starting to have a sniff as well. I thought, right, okay, let's see where this goes. And all the people that I was selling my pills to in bulk, I started selling coke to, and it just kind of moved that way.
Yeah,
very quickly, very quickly.
Yeah, because I was just thinking there, you're right, as you're sort of growing out of going clubbing all the time, and you are just going to bars and stuff, and you know yourself, as much as we're saying that ecstasy isn't one of the most dangerous, it's one of the most obvious that someone's on it. You can't, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you're sweating, the color of your complexion changes, you're sweating a lot, you know, your eyes are rolling, your jaw's out, you know, you are all over the place. You cannot hide it. Whereas with cocaine, actually, you can go out and you can do a few pints and have a sniff of cocaine and still come across pretty normal. I'm just going to say hello to a couple of people. Jade said hello. So yeah, you're right. No, we've got 2 viewers, and we've got Jade,
look at that,
friend of the show. So there you go. We've got an
well, it is Sunday morning. They're probably all getting over their night out last night.
They're probably listening to us with the heebie-jeebies.
They probably sat there with a big mirror in front of it. Oh, I could do a mirror hanging out their ass.
But yeah. So I can see why people sort of move on to coke. And then, so you just move with them. Did you notice straight away the difference in profit?
Not immediately, no, because it's a bumpy ride to take, because it's never as clear as you'll learn something and make the money. What I found with cocaine, it became extremely unreliable with the people that you're dealing with, because the people that I was dealing with may not have been ready for that market themselves. So it was like a big test of the water. So you might put out credit, say 10 or 15 grand's worth, and you might calculate profit to be on that might be a couple of £1,000. I can't remember, to be honest. So you got within that couple of grand, you know it's not going to be smooth. You just think, right, they're not going to always have all the money all the time. It just doesn't work that way. So you go out, someone owes you 5, they might give you 4. So I'll get the rest later on. Okay, no problem. Someone owes you 10, they might give you 8. All right, you're close. All of a sudden, you're just about getting nothing to pay your bill. Then you round yours up. The problems are inherent, and unless you're willing to be ruthless and violent at the drop of a hat. For example, if someone's late, there's like a zero tolerance, if you like. Then it becomes a very difficult industry, because I wasn't in it for the violence.
Yeah, you said
there's people around me like that, but
you said a few times that you were non-violent, that you didn't really get involved in that. I know you weren't. But do you know what I mean? Were you still involved in a violent world? Do you know what I mean? I'll just cut to the chase. You weren't violent, but were you getting other people? Were other people violent for you? Do you know what I mean? Was it?
No,
do you know what I'm asking? Actually, what I'm asking is, when you get into cocaine, do you have to be? Do you have to have some sort of level of at least threat of violence? Do you know what I mean? Is it just part and parcel?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think the threat of violence is always there on any level, no matter what. So
even amongst yourselves, as in, you know, your suppliers, and you know, there's an underlying threat of violence.
Yeah, because you don't have the authorities to deal with your problems for you. So sometimes people who get involved with drugs don't negotiate with the Maoris very well. So they turn to violence as the first means of communication. So, for example, if I owe money to someone and I say I'm a little bit late, and they're unable to communicate that sufficiently to their suppliers, I don't care if you're late. Well, I'm going to be late. I've got all the money. I didn't give a fuck. I want the money. What you can do if I haven't got it, I'll come down your house and I'll come down and take your telly, come take your car, kidnap your kids. Okay, I'll find the money. So the threat of violence is always there, and that threat sometimes has to be passed on. So if I've got someone owed me, let's say 10 grand, and they only had half of it, I said, look, let me see what I can do. I speak to my guy, boss up, mate. One of the guys is struggling. He's had a few problems. We're going to be a little bit short. How do you want to play it? I'll need the money. Okay, we need the money. And it would be a communication. If the guy above me said, yeah, I've got it covered, mate, don't stress. Fine. I said, mate, okay, you can have a couple more days. Just get it sorted out quickly. It would be a negotiation. And that's generally the best way to go, because you're not scaring people off. However, there's a threshold. There is a threshold where there are no there's no negotiation is going to do anything about it. If someone's blatantly taking the mick and they're having you over, or they're just spending the money, and you go down and find that they've they're strung out on drugs. If, well, hang on a minute, you owe me money and you're still clearly off your tits. You bought a load of new clothes. I see you got new trainers again. You're taking the piss, mate. Then you have to consider your options, don't you? If someone is taking the piss, you think, well, you're taking it. Either then you cut them off completely, you clean them out, take everything they've got, take the money, take the tellies, take the car, and then say, right, that's it, no more. You're done. We're done. We're finished. And usually that works. But sometimes you do have to get some to put a knock on the door, which I've never had to do. I've had to have people ring someone up and bark at them. And if you've got the right person barking down the phone, you don't need to get violent. It's just not necessary because their reputation will precede them.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned stuff like that in your book.
Yeah.
People that you were dealing with, kind of thing. Let's plug your book. Let's plug your book quickly. I did a banner for it. Everything. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Charlie 4 Keto. But I'll put the links up and everything afterwards. But you have got a book, and that's how I sort of came to know more about your story. So yeah, sorry. Just we're sort of keep rolling along with the cocaine dealing. At what point did it go from, all right, I'm making a bit of money selling a bit of cocaine, to suddenly you're making real money? Because I'm assuming that at one point you were making, well, I know we've spoke about it in the past, but at one point the money got good.
Yeah. So when I first started it, is around about 2001, and it was just turbulent. It was bumpy, nothing significant. And around about 2000 back in 2003, money started coming out. I was making not huge amounts, but more than I've ever made before. Let's say, for argument's sake, maybe I was doing $3 or $4 grand a week, give or take. For me, this is like, wow, okay, I get this now. This is what could be done. This is relatively good money for what I'm doing. Then everything went wrong. That's when I wrote the book in 2006. It went catastrophically wrong. It was horrendous. So, excuse me. And I was in a big, deep, dark hole of 80 grand trying to pay this debt off for about 18 months, which I eventually paid off. During that time of paying that debt off, what I did was I secured a load of new customers, and I'd applied so much energy into paying this debt off that when the debt was gone, I found all this energy was produced into earning me money again. And suddenly it started coming in, and it was coming in properly. So about 08, 09, that's when I started making some decent money, and it really was a lot.
I want to know. I'm getting. How much is? Are you allowed to say, or will you?
Well, okay, depending where you live geographically, I could have probably bought a semi-detached house once a month.
You could have bought what? Sorry,
a semi-detached house on a monthly basis. Yeah,
wow.
Depending where you lived geographically.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to assume that London, no.
No. Bristol, no.
Bristol, no.
Somewhere up north.
Yeah, up north, mate. You could buy an estate for that. At one point, they were selling houses for £1 each up here.
Yeah, so let's go with that. Yeah, but there was a road, wasn't there, where they were doing that? We can allow people to speculate as much or as little as they like.
Yeah, no, but that's still wherever we are. That's a lot of money. So and that goes on, and I mean, do you always have to rise? Do you know what I mean? Are you always trying to make more and get bigger and bigger as a dealer, or did you reach a bit where you sort of plateaued? I think that's the right word, and just thought, all right, this is it. I'm happy with what I'm making. I'm just going to do this now. This is my level.
Yeah, I think so. Well, what happens is you yourself, as a dealer, you want to not have many people on your books. You want to limit that to having. I had 4, 5 people on my books. Let them grow.
Yeah,
they're the ones which grow for you. So you've still only got 5 outlets, but they might be taking significantly more. The only way that works is if the work you're producing is good, a good reputation. They get a good customer base, and what they do is really. So you want your kind of regional supplies to be doing well for you, and that's where it was. I was happy where I was. I didn't have any ambition to go any higher. I wasn't looking for new customers. You just don't. You might get the old one fall into your lap if someone's been arrested and they need a new supplier. You may inherit people now and again through a bad debt, which is potentially disastrous anyway. But I was happy where I was because I'd already started formulating my exit strategy to get out. I'd already planned it, so I didn't want to go any bigger. I was happy with the people that were supplying me. I was happy with the people that I was supplying to. It was a non-violent revenue stream, if you like. It was a business arrangement which worked
I just want to jump in. I just want to jump in because, you know, I will say it was non-violent for you, Rich, but I guarantee that there was a lot of violence for other people.
Somewhere in
you know,
amongst the probably tens of thousands of people that were.
Yeah. I was just wondering there as well. I wonder how much of your, just to put you on the spot, mate, make you feel bad. Do you know what I mean? But I wonder how much of your cocaine was actually used for crack, which
I reckon very little, because it was getting bashed that hard. It was pub grub.
The
very
crack
little, mate. They wouldn't have got the return on it, mate. They would not have got the return. In fact, they'd have complained significantly. What we found was during the 2009, certainly 2010, we were suffering some droughts with cocaine, and the prices rocketed significantly from when I first bought it in 2002. It was like 26-7 grand for a really good one, proper, like 90%. Some 8 years later, it nearly doubled. It had doubled in price, nearly 60 grand for something which wasn't even as good.
Right.
And that was the supply was so short as well. We were literally having to hit it significantly to get it out there. I mean, I was putting out up, say, 5-10 kilos. I might have been getting 2 or 3. So it's getting hit at least 3 times or 4 times, bringing the percentage down to probably about 15%. If somebody wants to do crack, they're not going to get their money's worth. They're not going to get it. They're going to get a horrendous return, and they're going to think this is terrible. So it was what was referred to as pub grub tootless coke. But certainly during 2010, I didn't care about how weak it was. I needed to get as much money as I could to get myself out of it, because the strategy was in place. I knew what I needed to do. I didn't care if it just died a death. As long as I got myself out and into the garage and the motorsport, that was my focus. I wasn't really looking at drugs anymore. It's what they were my way out then.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there, mate, because obviously, you know, it's easy because I know you and because we've sort of become friends of such. It's easy to sort of ignore the problems for some of my friends as well that cocaine causes. You know, I've got a couple of friends that really bad addiction issues. So just, you know, I need to sort
of. I think it's fair to say though, Rick, that even if it's not for crack cocaine, people are sniffing, there's still going to be damage and casualties because they're spending money on a drug where the money could be spent on other things. If they're living on a breadline and they've got to make a choice, I'm going to go on the weekend and spend 100 quid on drugs. They're not buying food. They're not insuring their car. They're not buying new clothes, not getting the kids stuff they need for school. They're spending money. So there is damage.
But do you know what? Like going even deeper than that, that's just the financial stuff. I know people that, you know, they've got good jobs, kind of thing. You know, they're on the outside, they're looking all right. But the people around them are having to live with an addict, which is horrible. But any addict, you know, and I can talk about that with some authority because my wife lets me know how shit it's been living with me as an alcoholic for years. Do you know what I mean? And I've got friends that are cocaine addicts, and I've seen their partners at the end of their tether a lot of the time through concern. Do you know what I mean? The behavior. Because cocaine is one of them drugs that makes people behave crazy. It causes like people to be neurotic, paranoia, argumentative. Do you know what I mean? Never, you know, constantly. These people don't sleep properly. Do you know what I mean? Base level kind of thing. They're not living correctly, and they're a nightmare to be around. So I just need to sort of remind us both, kind of thing, that this isn't a big jolly story about how rich.
No, there's damage.
You know, a great cocaine dealer. Yay! You know what I mean?
What a hero.
He was a hero in the forces, and then he was a hero on the streets. Do you know what I mean?
It's all so happy.
Yeah, you know, it's not that. So I just needed to get that out there, Rich. But
no, we need a balance. There needs to be a balance of understanding the yin and the yang of what the dangers are. A lot of people will think, well, there's no damage in it, but there is damage in it. At the end of the day, the money.
What's interesting is listening to you when you, because this is a big thing for me as well, you know, where I'm sort of doing some work with some younger people and possibly some young offenders. I really want to stress to them, and you confirm this for me, which is why I enjoy talking to you about stuff like this. It's not a nice lifestyle, you know, it's a very stressful lifestyle. And even though you were earning a lot of money there, you've mentioned before that the higher the money, the more the stress. Do you know what I mean? And You know, I think you were saying like the higher the stakes become, the more on edge you are. So you never get to relax and enjoy your money.
No, you don't. And the thing is, and I know we said about this before, is all the money in the world doesn't change the fact that you are underlying stress. Everything you do is tainted by the fact that you're going to lose it all at some point. You have to be realistic with your life. If you're involved in crime, especially organized crime and drugs, it's going to go wrong. At some point, you're going to get caught, and you have to make a choice. And that's why drug dealers spend money like it's going out of fashion, because they're living every day like it's their last. They're not planning for a future. And if they do, they're planning the wrong future, because it's likely not going to have the future they're planning for. So yeah, it's and the stress is there, building with the stakes, the high stakes. You could earn. I'd much rather now. I'm much happier spending £3 on a nice cup of coffee than I would be spending £3,000 on a track day, because I'm not enjoying it the way I should. I can't wait till I can afford to go take my car on a track without all of that stress.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do that, to see what it actually feels like without coming off the track. And then once the adrenaline settles and then the stress rises, you think, oh my God, I got to deal with this now. I can't wait till I have to deal with that. You know, and I'm looking forward to that moment when I finally get out there again.
Yeah,
but
well,
no, right.
I see some others, you know, maybe not necessarily the drugs and that, but villains, if you like. You know, I see some names and stuff, and they're in their 60s now, and they're still living a very stressful life. They're still, you know, there's still a lot of aggression, calling each other out. And I think you're in your 60s, and I look at the money that they've earned, and it's not, you know, they're not fucking millionaires. So I'm like, you know, I look at people at that age in their 60s, right, that are still under all of that stress. I mean, it must be an addiction of sorts, do you know what I mean, to live that lifestyle? Because I think I know people that have got a trade that earn more than them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just by going to college for a few years and getting a trade and doing something with their hands. I know people that fit boilers in that earn more than some gangsters. Do you know what I mean? Legally. And I'm like, they're not stressed. The only stress they've got is real sort of stress. They're not worrying about getting fucking shot or anything like that.
No. Well, I got an example. Is one of my co-defendants, and we were sat inside, and he's lived off the grid all his time. Really good businessman. He is exceptionally good at business. Unfortunately, when he got caught, he lost everything because of poker. And I said to him, what are you going to do when you get out, mate? He goes, well, I don't know. I said, you're a businessman, mate. You're clever. You're really sharp. You've got to think of something. Well, I don't want to be a builder. I said, you have no idea what business is, do you? He's older than me, so his generation is work means something manual. I said, you've got a brain, mate. You've ran this business selling drugs for forever. I said, you apply that to something else and you will make good, clean money and you'll be a lot happier. He said, well, I don't know what to do. I said, you need to open your mind a little bit. Some people just are not capable of opening their mind beyond where they are, but they've got the capability to do so well, but they just can't seem to break away from it. They can't do it. I don't understand. I don't get why they want to risk coming ended up inside doing a lump when they don't need to be. I just don't get it.
That brings us nicely to you ending up inside doing a lump.
Yeah. Hey, time to do some burn.
Everything's going well. Everything's sort of going well. You're making a lot of money. You know, we talked about the stress of it, but you are making a lot of money. And then how long does that go on for? And then, just if you just take me through your bust and everything.
So, right. So we'll start on 2010. So as the start is going to be my finest and my worst year. So I've been focusing on the motorsport business. And if anyone wants to see, go, I've got a link to it. I'll put Rick up on my website. It's called I Am Rich Jones. You can find stuff out on there. So I built the motorsport business and I was racing at a semi-professional level. I was good. I was enjoying it. It provided everything I needed. I was focused on the garage. I was just, like I say, rinsing the hell out of the drugs to try and get enough in to get out. And the 1st of October, I opened up my garage, the Launch Motorsport Competition Car Preparation Center, or words to that effect. And it was it. I'd done it. I'd finally played everything I had into this. I had the race cars. I was set. All I needed to do was really just to get a little bit of a retainer. So I said to the guy that was managing my drugs thing for me, I said, look, just you have it. You take the lot, mate. I don't want it. So just give me a retainer, $4 or $5 grand a month, which it was earning easily that. So just give me 4 or 5 grand a month to keep the garage going until it's self-sufficient, because it was the back end of a recession, cold winter coming. I just need a little bit of money just to keep it going, pay the wages, pay the rent, pay the rates, all that sort of stuff, and that's what I wanted. Unfortunately, on the 23rd of September, a week before, the police started their investigation into me. So they knew I was going out. They knew I was leaving. They had information that I was about to bail out. And then the first arrest came at the end of October, October 29th, where one of my co-defendants was taken down with just over a kilo on him. And there was a sequence of arrests. Although I pulled out of it, there was the informant that was embedded within my circle, the one I suspect is the one that was managing it. He was the informant, and he was manipulating certain things, certain movements to set up things for further arrests, and that's what happened. So there was 3 arrests in the back end of in October, November, and December 2010, which are part of the ongoing investigation into my conspiracy supplying cocaine. And then he came and got me the following year in April the 13th, I think it was, 2011, when they took all the doors, me and all my co-defendants and the whole supply network. But this is running parallel to another conspiracy with my suppliers and their suppliers. So there were 2 investigations running in conjunction. They were separate, but they're kind of, I was the only common denominator. So I was arrested again from this other conspiracy charge. So basically there's 2 parallels, and I was the one in the middle between these 2 different organizations. So they both did the Operation Kestrel, which is Bristol, and Operation Berlin, which was Cheltenham and Thames Valley Police. So I was nicked twice, and then I was remanded in prison end of August 2011, and that's when it started.
Yeah. That's it. So once you're in remand, is that it? You didn't get back out until the end of your sentence?
No, luckily I got bailed. So I was bailed 5 weeks later on. There was a lot of riots going on.
Yeah.
Summer 2011, there was riots everywhere for some reason. I don't know what it was about. But it meant they needed space in local prisons, so we managed to get bail for 9 months, which was really handy. You got
bail, right, for 9 months, and this sort of this is a good opportunity to mention the fact that your dad, was a copper.
He was,
So what did he do in the police, Rich?
He was in a drug squad. I learned to become really evasive from a very young age. Anyone that grows up with a member of their family in the police force, if you're inclined to be mischievous in any way, they're inclined to find out very quickly. So you learn to cover your tracks. I think having a dad in the police force was detrimental to my development, in the sense of I became quite evasive and understood that some people are very good at what they do, so you need to be better if you don't want to be caught. So from a young age, I was always, if I did something wrong, I knew I had to cover my tracks, or if I did something wrong, I had to premeditate it. And if I do this,
when you come out and you're on bail, for a big charge as well, like, do you know what I mean? And your dad's obviously, your dad's within that world, so he knows that this is big. You said before, you know that once you've been arrested, you know that at that level they've done their work, that they've got you. They're not arresting you for you to be able to lie your way out of it. They've got you. If they're coming to get you all.
So in hindsight,
they
if they're taking down a conspiracy, they've done the research, they've got the evidence. That it's a very hard charge to prove or disprove. A lot of it is based on cell site analysis, telephone communication evidence, surveillance, what they see, and they form a pattern. So they're not going to arrest you without knowing they got a good chance of getting charged and convicted. Me at the time, my solicitor said, it's flimsy. You're right, it's flimsy. So I was taught I had this very difficult decision to make, is because of none of my family knew what was going on. I had to make a decision: do I go guilty or not guilty? And I told them this, of course. I went not guilty because I told them when I was remanded, this all what's happened. I saw something to do with the garage. So there's people, I think, local criminals laundering money through my garage, because I said I'll take a lot of cash, and I got a funny feeling I've been pulled into some kind of money laundering or drug circle. It was plausible in my head. It was plausible, and it seemed to be accepted by the masses out there. Whether it was or not, I don't know, but they're probably not. So in the end, I sort of went down the route of going not guilty and just continuing this charade that I was innocent. And by doing that, I ended up getting found guilty, which meant I got an extra 5 years on top. Had I pleaded guilty, I'd have got a 30% discount, which would have made doing nine and a bit years. But because I went guilty.
During that 9 months where you're out and you're saying, no, I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty in that, like, how's your dad handle that, if you don't mind me asking?
He was okay. I mean, on the face of it, he was okay. Probably quite stressful, but looking back now, it wasn't easy for anyone. And it was just a really weird time. It was really, really odd because I'm making the most of the 9 months I got left with my kids. I'm thinking, I'm going to be gone soon.
Were you not tempted to flee?
No, because kids are at school and everything else, and I'll be taking them with me. I mean, I'll be running for everything I care about. I thought, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down. Let's just make the most of the time I've got with them, which is really valuable.
Yeah, wasn't there like an element of Breaking Bad to it as well, where you did your wife and that know, or like, you know, was
no, it's just total secret that everyone was just completely in the dark.
So
I'm not saying they were.
No, I know what you mean. People. I've got friends that are up to stuff, but I don't ask. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? We all know people where we grow up, and that some people they're up to stuff. Like, when we don't ask any questions, and we assume it's not that bad now. But on the face of it, you just owned a garage. Do you know what I mean? That's how you make money. And then all of a sudden,
I owned a garage, and I'd always had some kind of income, some kind of business. Even in the early days, it was, if I was doing anything clandestine, it was I'm off on a security job, on a surveillance job.
Yeah.
So that would be always a plausible reason why I'm not around, or why I'm being cagey, or why I'm being mindful, or that there was always a reason I had for another job. So I've always ran a business of some kind, usually cash orientated for obvious reasons. When I got sent down, it was just like, for me, it was a level of acceptance. For everyone else, it was like, well, he's been sent down, he didn't do it. What's going on? He's innocent. That's hard to try and say to someone, actually, I did do it. I am guilty. I've been a right twat. Sorry about that. How do you get around that? It's difficult.
So I mean, you got 15 years. You got a fucking big sentence.
A bit of a lump.
Which is funny because on that first podcast that we did, I was still in the forces, and I had to be a bit like sort of tactful and say, "Where are you? You can't don't do time, don't do crime, you can't do time." But actually, like 15 years was a month. When you think about the sentences that get dished out to people that do, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, crimes that are morally far worse. And that's not saying that selling cocaine's fine, but do you know what I mean? Like, there is an element of if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. You're breaking the law, etc. But then you do think to yourself, fucking hell, like pedophiles and that get less than that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a ridiculous sentence when you compare it to other sentences. So I know you said like you were in shock, but I mean, fucking hell, did you whitey? Like, when you hear that, what were you expecting? What kind of sentence were you?
I had in mind about 11 or 12 years,
right?
Which is still high.
Yeah.
But when he said 15, it just tipped it over the edge, and I thought, because he doesn't just say 15 years, he won't just lay it down. He'll talk for a while about how he's come to this decision, and what mitigating reasons you've given, and then what aggravating factors have come in there, and in amongst this spiel, he'll say 15 years, and I think, do you what? You just say 15 years, mate. And I've looked across at my family like that. I was like, what am I going to do? And their faces were an absolute picture. Mine must have been like a look of just confusion, shock. But and then that was it. He said, right, take them down. And when we got set, I got 15, and my two co-defendants got 18 each. That made me feel a little bit better. They got 18. I thought, at least didn't get 18. And then when they take you down, I remember going down the steps, and it is when they say send them down, a lot of old courtrooms have got these old Bristol, like a spiral staircase that sort of goes down from the back of the courtroom down to the cells. And I've been coming up these stairs because I've been on remand for 5 weeks worth of sentencing. And I'm going down these stairs singing 15 years, and I kept saying it over and over again. And then everyone said, oh mate, I'm so sorry for you not helping me, mate. And they're just all really saying, I can't believe you got that, because he might have got a 10 and he got a 7, and there's my Cody's got 18s just like they're in tatters. And I'm thinking, well, I feel better thinking I didn't get 18, but I just sat down, I said it so many times just to process it, and then in the end I got my head around it and got on with it. So
did you so I know we'll get onto the fact that I don't think you ever sort of said anything to your dad, but you were saying there that you did actually have to say to people, all right, I might not be I might not be
Yeah.
innocent. I might have made that up.
Yeah, I might have lied for the last 15 years.
who did you have to tell that to? I'm assuming your missus.
Yeah, so it's difficult because trying to find the right time or place is very hard to do that. So initially I had to run the process of an appeal, because you're entitled to run an appeal straight away. So let's run an appeal on conviction or sentence. No, conviction. So you ran that. 6 months later, and I got knocked back. So for 6 months, I ran on kept the bullshit going for another 6 months, while to see what the appeal would do. Once that got knocked back, I said, right. And then trying to find the right place, it's hard to tell them over the phone. We don't want to send them in the visits hall because it's very public. So I just said on the phone, said, look, I did have an involvement in it. It's not as extensive as they do. And I sort of like played it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And she said, look, it doesn't matter. Look, it's happened now. You're inside. We'll focus on the boys. She'll focus on the boys. And we kind of just accepted it. I think it probably destroyed us in the end, because the reality is that I wasn't honest. I wasn't truthful about my background. When we came out, it didn't work out between us. We amicably we divorced. But I think me creating this false image and the risks involved in putting my wife through all of that, I think in the end it probably just destroyed the marriage, which is fair enough. No, it's my fault and I accept responsibility for that. With my dad, he had a stroke in 2016, so we let sleeping dogs lie. He still thinks I'm innocent. Let him live that world. He's fine. He still says now, so I can't believe you spent. I hate the thought of you in prison, Rich. I can't stand that. I think, oh, Dad. I said, don't worry, Dad. I was all right. It was okay. I'm all right. I'm fine. It's changed.
So, how 15 years? What did you do? Half of it?
To do 7.5, but luckily because I got that time on bail on the tag, I got that came off as well. So I did pretty much 7 years inside straight.
Still a long time that though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, it is. But it goes on. It's not funny after the first year. Well, the thing is, Rick, that I went in. I was quite overweight when I went in, so it's quite unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I went in and spent 2 years training really hard to get myself fit, physically, mentally fit, because my mental health was battered from doing that. So I got myself mentally and physically in a good place for the first 2 years of my Cat Bijo in Loudon Grange, which was a decent nick. And then I moved to Oakwood in 2014. And I just focused on then, still 5 years to go. And I thought, right, let's focus on what I'm doing. I just started working with veterans then. I thought, this is me. My head's in a good place. I can support people. I'm physically, I'm happy. I'm in better shape than I was when I came in. So let's see what I can do.
Is there any point, maybe not while you're inside, I know you're saying it now. In fact, was there any point where you were sort of like, I'm kind of relieved that I'm not involved in all that stress anymore? Or...
Yeah. From day one, mate, when I was arrested.
Oh, right.
From like the minute I got arrested at the garage, it's like, thank God. I've been waiting for this for months. It's done now. It's over. I can move on. Finally, I start this journey, because it had been 15 years then. 15 years I've been out of the forces, and I thought I need to move on now. And this is the catalyst for me. This arrest has finally put me in the direction I need to go in.
I asked this before, actually, like when you were in the dock, did they mention the fact that you've been in the forces before? Did that make you fucking look and think, this isn't how it was supposed to turn out? Do you know what I mean? Because you've gone from, you know yourself as, you get treated with respect when you tell people that you're either in the forces or that you were in the forces. Do you know what I mean? And sort of,
it was kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
It was like a let myself down, let me regiment down. You let everyone down because you're suddenly this person which you think, oh, they're all looking at you like, you're the jury looking at you, think, oh, you're a piece of shit, look at you, scum. And I'm thinking, yep, maybe you're right. And you're trying to think, well, it wasn't always like this. I was all right before, and all these things, I guess, just kind of build up in your mind. But I remember the way the jury would look at you, and the thing is, I've got a really good memory, and I'll say this in a certain way, but I will never. These faces get burned into your mind when you're stood in the dock for a day being questioned and cross-examined by the thing. You're looking at the prosecution, looking at the judge on my right, looking at the jury, they're letting them shaking their heads, and I'm looking at there's some real sour-faced individuals there, just born to hate, and I'm thinking, you probably wouldn't like me even if I was up here for, you're just miserable anyway, but you just feel that's the general public right there looking at you thinking, you're just a piece of shit, mate. And that's how I felt really low. And I thought, maybe I've been a little bit bad over the last few years.
Yeah.
And that's when your remorse kicks in. You start thinking, shit, these people really don't like me, do they? I'm meant to be technically innocent here. But they've made their mind up.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's hard.
Well, I mean, look, you get inside, right? And then you said they started working with veterans and stuff, and that sort of leads on to what you're doing now. How did that start? What happened? What happened? What is it that you saw that made you think, oh, there's a need for me to sort of help out these veterans and stuff?
Yeah, so I arrived in Oakwood in September 2014, and I was on a wing for lifers and long termers, and the chap now, he's passed now a few years ago, called Ian Rock, ex-RMP, and he's looked at me, he said, there's a role going as a veterans rep, do you fancy it? And he said, I've been trying to get you on it for a while, but we just needed to get you sorted out. I said, I'd love to. So I got on it, and the two lads that were the veterans reps, they weren't really doing anything, just collecting a wage. And I said, let's get this sorted out. So we got a list of guys in the jail, about 60 names, flirted around, updated it, added some more, and I set all the veterans in custody system back up in Oakwood and started getting it flowing again, and support, and meeting them as they're coming through the door, chatting about the problems they face. And I thought, we've all suffered similar problems, haven't we? We've all, in some way or other, we've had it's gone tits up when we come out of the forces. Tri-service, not just Army, but Navy and RAF as well. And we thought, there's got to be more to be done for this. So when you arrive in prison, you first land, probation would give you a sentence plan, and with that you have to address your offender behaviour. Yeah, if you're in for drugs, it'll be substance misuse. If you're in violence, might be anger management or TSP. There's a whole number of accredited courses which you will sit on, attend, tick a box, lower your risk, move on. So I spoke to them. I said, look, have you got anything for veterans, specifically written for veterans? And they looked around and said, no, there's nothing. So can I create a program, a course? I said, well, yeah, just crack on, mate. Yeah, good luck with that one. So luckily I had access to a laptop during my day job, which was in resettlement. I used to man an advice line into a phone system. And I wrote a course, a 12-module course for called Project TLS, which means the TLS, always a secret, means the lost service personnel, being involving everyone. And I wrote it based on my poor transition and all the areas that I suffered with when I came out. So like my mentality, risk-taking behavior, trust elements, money management, mental health. It just goes on. And I looked at all these areas where I struggled, where I didn't engage with charities. So I've created this course from 12 different modules. They looked at it and they were surprised that this dumb Squaddie produced a document with such a comprehensive document. Thought, hang on a minute, we were expecting it like written in crayons on a bit of paper. This is actually really good. So they gave me the permission to sort of do some case studies. So I did five one-to-one case studies with veterans in custody, and I sort of tallied the results of the pre and post questionnaire, and on every case they'd show marked improvement with their understanding about their transition in certain areas where they may have struggled. So I was then given permission in 2018, the 2017, launch it as a pilot, which I did to all the veterans in custody, and I did the same with 2018, and I got out in 2019. So the intention was to go back into the prisons to deliver this course, which is what I am doing now. So after COVID finally got rid of, I got the course accredited by CPD. I've now contracted in HMP Oakwood and HMP Five Wells, which is the brand new prison in Wellingborough, where I'm delivering the course. I've actually got currently 2 courses running at the minute, one in Oakwood, one in Five Wells, where I'm now supporting veterans in custody. And it just, we look at our journey. The point of this thing is the course can be delivered at 3 stages: prevention, which is people in the forces before they come out; intervention, either caught up in some sort of community order; or restoration, either in prison. The point of the restoration stage is, one, for us to identify where they go wrong, so to put a care plan in place when they come out of prison to sort of support them with probation, but it's to gain information from their journey, which I can then modify the program and deliver it to people coming out of the forces, so they can recognize where they might go wrong. It's just equipping them with different tools.
Yeah.
So other than the tools that they would think they need, but I look at the darker side of transition, whereas the CTP will do things like interviewing techniques, transferable skills, CV writing, all the random generic bullshit which we all know how to do anyway. I'll tell them how do you spot a fucking drug dealer? How do you avoid certain people? What happens if you get caught up in a conspiracy? What happens if this guy comes across? How do you know you can trust that person? That sort of things I'll teach them about.
Yeah.
So I'm currently working on trying to get that into the MOD. It's a way off yet, but I'm working in. I've just formed a link with Purbright Barracks. I was in Purbright last Thursday.
Yeah,
So the one before that, which is really good. I did a talk to recruits in there about going and getting involved in drugs and how it can affect their career or lack of it if they get caught. So I'm doing loads now. I'm really good. It's finally landed, and I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy where it is. It's still beginning yet.
And you've got your book.
C4K, first book in a series of 4.
Yeah, we'll get that back up. It's on Amazon. I'll put the links up. You write that yourself. You did, didn't you?
Yeah, in crayons.
Yeah. No, because it's a very good read. Do you know what I mean? And there was part of me thought, well, he's Pongo. He can't have wrote that himself. He must have got somebody else to do it for him. You know what I mean? But no, it's a good read. So I recommend it highly.
If anyone gets it, if anyone does get it, it is part 2. It's the first book. There is no part 1 yet, so don't think I missed something. Part 1 will be a prequel.
Right.
So this is part 2, Charlie 4 Kilo. Part 3 is next, then part 4, then eventually part 1 will be last. Which will be written about stuff we talk, and then the film's going to be coming after that.
Who's playing you? Who's playing you?
Someone bold, Danny DeVito or
yeah. All right. Anyway, listen. Right, thank you. We speak quite regularly. And like I said, I got you onto that last one with Emily and Mike, which I thought was a really interesting conversation to have. I thought it was really good to have Mike talk about it from a copper, and then you sort of break down, the business side of things.
The good thing is Mike verified some of my parts of my journey. On a timeline, we said about we had problems with ecstasy the back in the millennium. I said yes, he was aware of that. I said that's when the price war came down and cocaine came in. He said I'm fully aware of it. So it kind of it confirmed some of my sort of things I was doing. For anyone out there which doesn't necessarily, you get up, people don't believe, don't you? People think, oh, this guy's full of shit, or he's making it up. To get someone from the other side to say, actually, no, this sits in from their intel, from their side, that marries up with what they know.
The war on drugs, right? Can it do anything?
I think there's aspects of it. It needs to be looked at. How it is right now, it's not working. And as it Mike said, you take someone out, someone else goes in their place. There's always going to be someone.
Mike, the first podcast that I did with Mike, where it was just me and Mike, Mike and I, he said what I say anyway, is that the war on drugs came along and created the drug dealer. And there's a massive argument that you don't become a cocaine dealer if there isn't a war on drugs. Do you know what I mean? And if it isn't illegal. And actually, when you are a cocaine dealer, you don't want drugs to be legalized. Do you know what I mean? And that's from a dealer's side of points. Like, well, I don't want drugs to be legalized. That takes away my livelihood. So, I'm not, when I say legalized as well, I don't mean fucking selling cocaine at my corner shop. Do you know what I mean? I just mean, I think that this has gone on for long enough now, this tactic where we just criminalize everything about drugs. You know, and it puts it in the hand. And like we were saying at the beginning of this, because it's illegal, that means that the only way that debts, etc., can be enforced is through violence. There's no at the end of the line, with a legal situation, if somebody owes me money legally and they refuse to pay me, I get to take them to court. Do you know what I mean? If we go right down it, I seize their assets through the courts. It's all done legally. When it's illegal, the only way to get those assets is, like you said, by violence. And that violence seems to get worse and worse with each generation. Like Mike was saying, when you got busted, within 2 hours, there would have been a crew replacing you. And it would have been, like Mike was saying, that there would have been 3 people vying for your spot, and the most violent one comes out on top. And, his term that I love was that creates a Darwinian spiral of violence that never ends. Like I said, I'm not saying legalize drugs, let everybody take drugs. The people that I've met in life that don't take drugs naturally and don't drink are usually far happier, far more grounded. So, if you can get through it without doing anything, great. But this war on drugs is stupid. And it criminalizes, it tends to punish sort of the wrong people. It hits the poor people the hardest, the addicts and stuff like. And And to make you feel bad again, it creates an opening for somebody like you to come along and sell drugs to people that then go on to have lots of problems. So that's my piece.
And I can have a lavish lifestyle at their expense.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? But all joking aside, that is, it allows people to profiteer off of people's addictions. When maybe if we take away, I'm not a legal expert, but if things aren't illegal and we can sort of take control back via the state, if you like, and we've got a grip on who's using what and what problems there are, we can start sort of treating things as maybe a health issue and, taking that power away from horrible drug dealers like you, Rich.
I know, evil. Well, you take a look at things like county lines. Look how severe that's gotten in recent years, because of people getting put away. They are literally infiltrating all the spots now. Mass organised crime groups, big supply come for the cities, into the sort of smaller towns, trap houses everywhere. People being literally exploited and made into literally like live-in slaves to do their job. So that is the sort of thing Mike was referring to. You take a dealer out who may have an area covered, you put a county line setup in there, totally different kettle of fish. Pure violence.
Earl, that I did my first ever podcast with, he, and Lance as well, that I'm setting up Sports Trader for in Newcastle. A lot of the stuff they do is with county lines and, explaining, like Earl had to speak to a young lad and explain, listen, they're going to send you on 2 or 3 runs and you're going to make big money. And then on your fucking 4th run, mate, they're going to rob you. And then you're in debt to them forever. You won't get out of that spiral. I just wanted to sort of highlight that I think the war on drugs is causing way more harm to society than good. And I want to say thank you, Rich, for coming back on and doing something.
You're welcome, mate. You're welcome.
Hopefully, I will catch up with you in Bristol at some point, because I always wax lyrical about Bristol. It's my favourite city. I think it's an amazing place.
Calm down. We'll go get some food, mate. We'll have something to eat.
Oh, there's so many places to eat in Bristol.
Some good steakhouses.
I should be down there about September.
Give me a shout.
So we'll give you a shout. But listen, I'm just going to put up I have to fiddle about with all this. I'll put up my closing credits, and I'll just hang around afterwards to say thank you. Anybody that's watching, I was supposed to say this all the way through. I always forget. If you could subscribe to the channel. We've got a few things going on. Obviously, you've seen some of the stuff that I talk about, and just highlighting social issues. And we do a fair bit of sports stuff as well. So Anyone TV community podcasting channel. We're based up in Newcastle, but I'll talk to anyone. Me, Rich. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Rick. Take care, mate.